I hope you enjoyed all of the holidays, and we are back with the Know Better, Do Better series. My girl, Chloe Moore, is here, and we are going to continue to drop all the gems for you in 2023. So if you love what we did in 2022, don't worry, we've got more of that. I'm sure you are setting new goals, new maybe resolutions. A lot of people don't like the word resolutions nowadays, but new year, new you. I'm sure you have something you want to accomplish in 2023 that you did not accomplish in 2022. We are here for you in any way that we need to be. Let us know what you want us to talk about, what other subjects you want to be covered, and how we can support you on your journey to financial freedom, wealth, and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish financially. So without further ado, Chloe, Happy New Year. How are you?
Happy New Year. I'm great.
All right. Well, let's get our party started with what we always start with: trends, taxes, and tea, where we bring you the latest trends on how to save more and pay less, or we share a little current event that has to do with money. So what do you have for us today, Chloe?
Yeah. So last year, the personal savings rate in the US hit its lowest level since the Great Recession. So some of you might remember, depending on how old you are, we had this Great Recession about, was it 15 years ago now? Just about. And and everything went down. We had a housing market crash. It was just a really bad time all around. And so over the years, savings rates kind of went up. During the pandemic, they got into the double digits. You know, people were at home, they weren't spending as much. And then it kind of plummeted last year.
Oh, man. And I mean, we're in the new year. So holidays is a time when people spend good bit of money. Sometimes they overspend, they didn't budget. That's actually another tip. Like, I know we're on trends, taxes, and tea, but it's a new year. If you overspent and you're starting the new year with a little bit less than you were planning to have, you can start saving now, because we know that the holidays are coming again in November and December. So let's get some money set aside. Those low savings rate, lowest since the Greatest Depression. I think they're super duper low now because of overspending during the holidays, but we're going to bring it back. And a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are our fellow millennials that were coming of age during the time of this Great Recession. So parents were affected by it, grandparents were affected, but we were adults living through this, but we're kind of at the beginning of adulting, if you will. So if you remember the Great Recession, I'm sure that you are thinking of like, oh my goodness, we can't go back there, and why are savings rates this low? You can be the answer to getting the savings rate up despite what is going on in the economy.
Exactly. And, we understand, of course, there's really high inflation right now. It reached a 40-year high. And so, people are having to dip into their savings to cover their everyday expenses. Not everybody makes enough money to where they have it, excess and are able to save. So, we fully understand that. But, Lauryn and I, we work with a lot of young professionals that make really, really healthy incomes and have a lot of room to save. And so we want to make sure that you are doing that so that you can get to the point where you work because you want to and not because you have to.
Ooh, that is a word right there. Work because you want to, not because you have to. So many people are just like, when is that? Can that be tomorrow? Well, it depends on your savings rate. And despite all the craziness going on in the world, you've got to figure out how to prioritize getting some money in the bank, well, really not in the bank, in an investment account, in order for you to be able to let that money grow, work on your behalf. And so without further ado, if you guys haven't figured it out already, today's topic is saving for retirement. We are starting this new year off getting you ready for the long term. Chloe, what should we be thinking about as we dive into this topic of saving for retirement?
Yeah, I thought it'd be good to kind of level set and just talk about levels of financial freedom. And so there's actually a guy, if you've heard of the FIRE movement, which is financial independence, retire early. That's basically a big movement of all these people that are kind of retiring at super early ages or saving, big percentages, 50% plus of their income, so that they can retire as soon as possible and kind of live their dream life. And so there's a guy who's kind of at the forefront of this movement, and he created what's called the 7 levels of financial freedom. So we wanted to kind of talk through this to kind of give you an idea of what those levels are, and then you can kind of see where you fall in that.
All right. So the first level is clarity. you figure out where you are financially and where you want to go. So, very, very baseline. Have you set any financial goals for yourself? And do you know what your current financial situation is? Because so many people are just like work, pay bills, and they don't really have a pulse on what their finances look like, what they need to do to, change the trajectory of their finances. And they don't have any goals. So they just keep working and pay bills, working to pay bills. So level one, clarity.
Yeah. And then level two is self-sufficiency. So, you're independent, you're able to kind of cover your basic expenses. And that's pretty much it. Like you're just kind of, again, kind of working and living. You might have some sense of direction, but you're pretty much just kind of going with the flow.
So this means you are no longer living under someone else's roof. You have real bills, you got your own stuff, but it also doesn't mean that you're doing well just because you're living on your own. Level 3 is breathing room. So now you are saving some money and you no longer are living paycheck to paycheck. Can anybody relate to the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle? So many people I come in contact with are just like, well, I can't do this because when my paycheck comes this week, then I pay half of this and then I do the other half of so and so. The paycheck to paycheck mentality means you're not in the area of the breathing room. So you're either on level 1 or level 2. But when you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, you've now hit level 3. And remember, we said there's levels of this. There's 7 levels. So if we're trying to get wealthy, you want to be able to move up from paycheck to paycheck lifestyle.
Yeah. And something else I'll add there is, we see it all the time. There's people who make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year or even more, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. So it's not a matter of how much you're making. It's how much you're spending and really how you're managing your money.
Ooh, preach, Chloe, preach. Yes. So frequently, not just like every once in a while, frequently we have high earners that are coming for financial services that are living paycheck to paycheck. And I love the point that you made is like so many people are just like, if I just make more money, then, fill in the blank, I can save for retirement. Then I can do this. But there's this thing called lifestyle creep that kind of takes a hold of people, the cliche, more money, more problems. It is a real deal Holyfield problem that a lot of people are dealing with. And if you can't manage a little, then it's likely that you're not going to be able to manage a lot. So we're not judging people who are 6-figure earners or even 7-figure earners living paycheck to paycheck. It's all about getting the financial literacy in place as soon as possible. What's number 4?
Yeah. So number 4 is stability. So that at that point you have no bad debt. So you don't have like credit card debt or anything like that, or any kind of consumer debt. And you've saved an emergency fund.
Ooh, I think people are like, okay, wait a minute, hold on a second. Most of the world, I mean, if we said percentage wise in the United States, there's a lot of articles about what a low number of people have enough money to be able to cover an emergency fund. So I would say a lot of America is living below the stability standpoint, but getting rid of the bad debt. So credit card debt you accumulated over the holidays, we got to get that out the way if we want to be financially stable. If you took out any personal loans, healthcare loans, things like that. You want to get those things taken care of and be, pretty much debt free in the sense of like something that's not a obligation like a mortgage or a car payment.
Yeah. And this is where I see a lot of clients, kind of get stuck in this cycle of stability. They do have their emergency fund saved and maybe they're even saving for future spending. So, if they're saving for travel or if they have, like a home that they want to buy. And so they're saving for a down payment. Or just kind of have different goals that they're setting aside money for. So it's like they feel like they're doing something good by saving, but you're still really not, you're just at the very beginning phases of starting to build wealth.
Very much so. Beginning phases. So we're on level 4. Level 5 is flexibility. So you have at least 2 years of expenses saved. Wait a minute. We just took a jump. So we went from having no debt and a 6 months of expenses saved to you have at least 2 years of expenses saved and you could take a year off work. That is when you are flexible. And it is such a cool place to be. I was actually hanging out with a friend in New York recently. And I was like, what are you up to now? He was like, I am so unemployed, Lord, and so happy. And I was like, wait, what? And, this is exactly where he is. He has 2 years of his expenses saved and he's looking for the right job right now because he doesn't just want any job. So what a cool place to be.
Yeah, and that gives you a lot of, as a level says, flexibility. So, let's say that you're in a job that you hate. We talk about it all the time with, whether you're a person of color or woman and you're working in an environment where you don't feel, comfortable or safe and you want to leave. If you're in a toxic work environment, you have the flexibility to do that. If you get laid off, you have the flexibility to take your time and find the next job that's right for you.
Yes, a lot of people like to call it the FU fund, where you throw up your middle
Yeah.
finger and you walk out of work because you don't have to take this. You are not financially bound to showing up to this place and being treated any kind of way or doing work that you don't love because you have flexibility. All right, level 6. We've got a lot of levels, you all, and I'm sure you figured out maybe where you are. Maybe you're not there yet. Like we got 2 more levels to go. Is financial independence. So you can live off the income your investments generate, and this is a word we're going to talk about this a lot when we get a little bit further into the episode. But Chloe, tell us what financial independence looks like.
Yeah, this is basically traditional retirement. So you're at the point where you don't have to work anymore. You might choose to continue working, but if you wanted to stop at any point in time, you have enough investments to generate income to cover all of your expenses and everything that you would need for the rest of your lifetime.
Ooh, I just want to talk about the generate income piece of it, but I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it for a little bit, a little bit later. And last but not least, so above and beyond financial independence, there is something, because so many of us are only planning for retirement, but there is more to the story. There is abundant wealth. This means that money is not a concern. You have more than you will ever need. This is that upper echelon, but it is not unachievable. You do not have to be a billionaire that owns a really big fancy company to hit this level. You just need to organize your finances accordingly and go after it.
Yeah. And I know a big buzzword is generational wealth and building generational wealth. And that's what this is. It's really getting to the point where, you really have more money than you'll need during your lifetime. You can help support future generations.
Yeah. This just takes financial literacy, good savings habits, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So I think, now that we've gone through the 7 levels of, being able to become financially free and people kind of know where they are. It's like, okay, well, what do I need to do to change my situation? Because the new year, it's the new me. Like, get us together, Lauryn and Chloe. Don't worry, we got you. Savings rates. How does someone need to save in order to be able to accomplish their financial goals?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about savings rates. The first thing is you want to think of a savings rate as how much are you saving as a percentage of your income? And when I say a percentage of your income, I mean your gross income. So if you make $100,000 a year and we say, and you have a 15% savings rate, that means that you're saving $15,000 a year.
Somebody just fell out of their chair. I'm sure of it. Don't drive off the road while listening to this podcast. Yes. We are saving based on our gross income. So 100K, let's just go up higher because we got some earners. I know we have some earners listening to this, but 200,000 and you got to save 20%. That's $40,000 per year. That is your savings rate. You need to be saving that specifically for retirement, not just saving it for your vacations or your, right? Like not your emergency fund. You're telling us we got to save this for retirement.
Yes. Ooh. Yes. And so typically, I tell people to aim for a minimum of 15 to 20% of your income each year. And so the thing about that is that's typically a percentage that you want to aim for like early in your career. So the longer you wait, the more you have to save. If you just started saving in your 30s or 40s, that percentage is going to have to be, possibly up to 30 or 40% to get you to where you want to be.
This is where the rude awakening comes in so frequently with clients is that they are a little bit behind, and playing catch up means making some adjustments to the lifestyle. So like I said, more money, more problems. Like, oh, I got more money. I want to be able to do some other things. I want to start being able to go on vacation. I want to start, fill in the blank with some additional goals that you have that you haven't been able to do with your previous earning level. But ultimately, you're, like I said, once again, creating a larger lifestyle. And if you want that lifestyle in the future, you're going to have some money saved for it. And so it's a hard conversation to say like, hey, we actually need to pull back a little bit. You create a lifestyle based on this kind of income because we need to save this much income. Some people don't like me very much when I have to tell that hard truth, but I mean, it's math, it's numbers.
Yeah. And it's really all about balancing between enjoying your life today and investing for your future. And, it's like you don't want to get to the point where, if you're living off of all of your income right now, you're barely saving anything or saving less than 10%. And you're kind of accustomed to living, a very good lifestyle. And then you get to the point where you either physically can't work anymore or you just are tired of working. And, you at that point, you don't have enough money saved. So you have to drastically reduce your lifestyle. Versus if you're able to just cut back just a little bit now and still live a really good life and enjoy things in your life and, kind of set some money aside for your future, then you can really kind of maintain that lifestyle forever.
Yeah. And I know one of the things that I hear clients talk about a lot or why people even reach out in the first place is because as millennials, our parents are starting to retire and we're seeing our parents not actually being able to retire. So they want to, like you said, stop working. They feel tired. Some of them are getting ill and can't work anymore. And they're just not in a financial situation to be able to do so. And it's scaring the bejeebers out of people. And they're just like, oh my goodness, like, I don't want to be in this situation. But there's also the like, I can't really help you because I got to help myself sort of thing where, you're trying to figure out how to help your parents during this time period as well. That can be a factor. And if you have children, you don't want to be a burden on your children. So that's another thing to be thinking about as you try to find like, what's my motivation for changing the way that I'm spending and changing the way that I'm going to start saving for this year. Be thinking about those things as well.
Yeah. And something else we wanted to bring up with high earners, a lot of times we get clients that are making really good money and they're maxing out their 401k, which is amazing. And so if you max out your 401k and that's all that you're doing, it might not cut it. Your 401k max is a little over $20,000 for this year. And so, let's say you're making $200,000, then that's only about 10% or a little bit less of your income. And so you have to think about, if you're doing that and you really need to be saving 20% or 30%, just maxing out your 401k is not enough.
Yeah, this is a tough conversation. So a lot of the people that come to me are single women that have now hit the 150 to 200K mark. So a good 6-figure income, just them. And I explained, like you said, the 20K is not enough. We're well over the 6-figure mark. And we've got to start saving above and beyond that. And it is something where they're just like, wait a minute, I got to find $20,000 more to save, Lauryn. Like, hold on a second here. And like I said, adjusting your lifestyle is going to be a key piece of the puzzle. So 401k, when we think about it, narrative wise, a lot of people are just doing whatever the employer matches. If that's you in 2023, we have to level up. It is time to move on. Because it's like we said, there's levels to this, 7 of them. So we want to get past the point of doing that. I think it's around $22,000 this year is the number for retirement. And then say, like, where else can I continue to put money? And this is where like brokerage accounts come into play. So Chloe talked about FIRE as a movement. Well, if you're going to FIRE, that means you're going to retire before age 59 and a half and before normal retirement age, quote unquote. Well, you can't pull money from this 401k that we're talking about until age 59 and a half. So that's yet another way to prove to us that we need to be saving more than what's in our 401k. Because we need some money to pull from some other place until we hit age 59 and a half. So be thinking about that.
Yeah. And we won't, it's probably a little bit too much for this conversation, but I'll put in the show notes an article that I wrote about kind of how to prioritize the different types of accounts and just the different order to use the different types of accounts. Because there are, like Lauryn said, there's 401ks, there's IRAs, there's brokerage accounts, there's Roth accounts. So yeah, there are plenty of places where you can put your money and you want to make sure that you have it in different types of accounts.
So, all right, let's say we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. You have a really great savings rate. Now I want to take my money out. I've hit this retirement point. Like, what do I need to be thinking about as far as like the calculation related to like, can I start taking money out of my retirement? Can I really like not work anymore? When do I know that that's a thing for me?
Yeah. And so really it's a matter of figuring out like what's your ultimate goal? Like how much do you really need to save to be able to sustain your lifestyle in retirement and for the rest of your life? And so there's a general guideline for how much income you can safely withdraw from your investment portfolio. And that's called the 4% rule. So you might have heard of that. You might not have. but it's really just a guideline for how much income you can pull from your portfolio without fear of depleting your retirement savings. So, for example, for every $1 million that you have invested, you can withdraw $40,000 a year without fear of depleting your retirement savings. And this is really a kind of back of the envelope rough calculation. There's definitely a lot of caveats to this rule.
Okay, so if I got $1 million, I can take out $40,000. Some people are already like mind blown, like, where am I getting $1 million from? Like, I don't have $1 million. I got $100,000. Well, this is why this episode exists. Like you said, we're coming out with the numbers to be able to kind of help you think about like where you are. If you're not working with a financial professional, like behind the numbers is like, okay, you got 100K. Well, what does that look like? Like, it's like $4,000. Like, can you live off of $4,000 a year? Like, probably not. Like, so that shows you that you're not ready to retire yet. And why $100,000 is not enough. So like people get that 6-figure mark, either earnings wise or retirement wise. And it's like, woo, I made it. And it's absolutely something to celebrate. But like we talked about earlier in the episode, inflation is a thing. We got to level up from an earnings standpoint and also level up from a saving standpoint. And, to be in your 40s, late 30s, any millennial ages, I think we're 27 to 42 this year is what they're calling the millennials. And not have a 6-figure retirement account might mean that you are a little bit behind. What do you think, Chloe?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it's not unheard of for, a lot of our clients to have take home pay of $10,000 a month or more. And so, just thinking of for this example, if you're accustomed to spending $10,000 a month, you need a few $1 million in an investment portfolio to be able to generate that kind of income. So you don't have to work anymore.
Right. Because $10,000 a month is $120,000 a year. And that's only 4% of what's in your portfolio. Right.
Yeah.
As per this rule. So, all right. So what else should we be thinking of as we think through, or can we move on from the 4% rule? You think people got it?
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say is if you have some other sources of income, you can supplement. So, our like parents' generation is not really as common these days with most jobs, but there are pensions out there. There's Social Security, which again might not be 100% available to us. So I try not to even count on any of that. There's other things that you can do, or even if you want it to get to the point where you can consult or do some part-time work and kind of partially retire. But yeah, there's other kind of ways that you can supplement the income. But if you have a portfolio that's, the amount that we've talked about, you can kind of generally use that rule and you don't have to have income producing assets.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point about pensions, Social Security, other little bits of income. So if you work for the government in some sort, the city, the state, the federal government, a school system is generally still going to have a pension available. And so this is the people that are taking money automatically out of your paycheck. You're just like, I have no choice. I don't get to do anything. They're basically saving on your behalf. And it can really be helpful for you in the future, especially if you don't decide to save above and beyond that. It at least gives you something to work with. But to your point about consulting or part-time work, it's always with that little asterisk next to it that you're going to be able to do so, in addition to wanting to do so, to be able to supplement your income. So definitely some things to consider in that regard. All right, Chloe, we just learned about this 4% rule, but how am I going to grow my money to $1 million? Because I'm stressed out right now. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm saving $20,000 of my $100,000, and I somehow got to get this to grow to a million. Wait, I look really more than that because I want to spend more than that. Like, can anything help me grow this money?
There's a magic thing called compound interest. And that's basically the interest that you earn on top of your interest. So for example, let's say you invest $1,000 and it earns 5%. So after that first year, you'll have $1,050. And then you earn 5% on top of the $1,050. So the next year you would earn $1,100 and a little bit of change. And so that money just continues to grow and grow and grow. And as the balance gets higher and higher, that money snowballs.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to point out is compound interest is awesome. And the second thing is that the longer period of time that you have, the more your interest can compound. So the one thing that we miss out a lot on as young professionals is the idea that starting now and doing something is important. And we get so caught up in like the narratives of the world that say like, oh my goodness, flip your money, make your money work for you. And I get clients come to me all the time. It's like, if I give you $1,000, when can you give me back two? And I'm like, that's not how it works. It grows slowly. So in Chloe's example, 5% is what it was growing by. The market on average is around 7 or 8%. It's not, 12 or 20%. You're not doubling your money in the market overnight or over any short periods of time. You want to make sure that you realize like, hey, I got to keep putting money in, and the money that I put in is going to grow. Also, the growth is going to grow. And that is how compound interest works. There is no magic wand that's overnight, like abracadabra, you're caught up for retirement. It is when you were in your 20s, you put a little bit away because you were broke. When you're in your 30s, you put more away, and so on and so forth. And that paid itself off over time to where you're not having to save 40 or 50% of your income in your 40s or 50s to be able to, afford your lifestyle in the future, or, having to make these big drastic cuts. So compounding interest is a slow and steady thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I'll put this in the show notes too. There's a great chart that I use a lot of times when I'm doing webinars, but it talks about, it has examples of 3 or 4 different people that have saved over time. And so, one person started saving at 25 and they saved from 25 to 35 and then stopped saving. And it shows how much, someone who starts saving at 35 has to save just to catch up with them, because over time that money just continues to compound. So the earlier you start, the better.
All right. There's this other thing that we like to talk about sometimes, and it's like how to get your money into the market. So if I got a big lump sum, I inherited $100,000 from my rich aunt that, didn't have any children. How do I deploy that capital into the market, and so I can start getting this compound interest, Chloe?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways that you can invest in the market. One is in these lump sums. So if you receive a lump sum, whether it's an inheritance or a bonus, you can put all of that money to work right away. Another thing is called dollar cost averaging. So that means that you're putting in a little bit of the same amount over time. And so, just think about your 401k. You're putting money in each paycheck into this 401k account. And so that's really the best example of dollar cost averaging. Every paycheck, you put the same amount into the market and you're investing that amount. And so over time, that's just going to continue to grow. The market can be up, it can go down, but you're consistently putting that dollar amount into the market.
Okay, so we got to pause here for a second because this is really important. Let's say you're putting $1,000 in and you're buying something that, the market's down and the shares are only $5. So you're getting to buy a lot of shares for that $5 because the market is down. Whereas the market's up, which everybody loves when the market's up because your money's growing. But guess what? Those same shares that were $5 might be $100. And now you're only getting 10 shares every time you put the money in. The beauty of dollar cost averaging is that sometimes you're getting a little bit of shares, sometimes you're getting a lot of shares, but over time, market's going to end up. You're going to be doing okay, and you would have already continued the process. So now you have this big pot of shares that can take advantage of whatever is happening in the market. And so the reason I bring this up and I kind of paused here is because so many people have reached out and said that they have stopped investing because the market is down. They just gave up. They hold on a second. This is disgusting. I don't know what's happening here. Like everything is worth nothing. I don't want to participate in this. What are they missing out on, Chloe, by like not participating right now while everything's going terrible?
Yeah, well, there's a little saying like buy low, sell high. And so you definitely, I feel like a lot of times when the market is up and things are great, that's when everybody wants to buy in. And then when the market goes down, that's when everybody wants to either stop investing or sell. And that's kind of, that's not really the best way to invest. You want to invest while things are cheap, and then that gives you so much more growth in the long term.
So slow and steady, once again, wins the race. Keep putting your money in despite what the market is doing, especially if you're of the millennial age group. You likely have 20 years until retirement still. So, you don't want to stop investing. You don't want to stop saving because you're trying to get ready for something that's not happening right now. We get so worried about the right now and what's happening when it's not actually, you're not taking the money out of your 401k. So it doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't feel good. I know mine is down too. There's no magic wand that I have as a financial advisor that has my account growing and yours isn't. The market is down right now. But you have to stay the course because ultimately on the other side, we're going to win.
Yeah. And it's all about consistency. And I wanted to give you another example too of just, we've talked about all these millions that you have to save, and it really isn't as hard as you think it is to save $1 million, especially if you're a high earner. And so Lauryn and I ran a quick calculation just to say, if you're able to save $50,000 a year, and we assumed a 7% growth rate, which is very conservative, just in 10 years, you could have $739,000.
Okay, wait. So just to run this back, because it's all about the numbers. So I save 50,000 a year for 10 years. So that means I save 500K of my own money, but I have 739,000 10 years later. So I earned an additional 200K, which is probably my whole salary if I'm able to save 50K a year. Like I earned a whole salary by simply putting some money aside. I think that's where we kind of get a little bit twisted, and like, how does this money management, growth, savings thing, like, how does it all work? It's a slow and steady that we were just talking about. And so there's also somebody listening is like, $50,000. How am I supposed to save $50,000 a year? You absolutely can. If you just reorganize your finances, think about what your priorities are. And like I said, it's also based on your earnings. So, 50K a year may not be your number, but it could very well be a number. Like I said, we're going off of 20% of your income. It might have to be your number in order for you to be able to reach retirement at a normal time based on the way that you're earning. So, and it should get a little bit easier to save above and beyond that 20% mark as you earn more, because at some point you kind of like, okay, we've got $150,000 lifestyle in our family, and that's enough. So even though I'm earning 400,000 or 500,000 or whatever, like, you're just stacking away a lot more cash because that you can do the things you want on your $150,000 lifestyle.
Exactly. And just, even with the same example, the more time that you invest, I mean, obviously the more it compounds. So to get to $1 million at that $50,000 savings rate, it only takes you 13 years.
So just 3 years later, I've gotten yet another $300,000.
Yeah.
I think that is perfect to illustrate the power of compounding interest, is that it took, $100,000 a year is what I basically got over the next 3 years because I had so much money saved and set to the side. And I think this is a great place to talk about the idea of like passive income. Because so many people talk about the idea like they want to get into real estate or they want to find something that is passive income. What did you do over those 3 years? Like, you had the 700,000 saved, you just let it sit there. You earn more additional money. That's as passive as it gets. And I think sometimes we miss out on that because there's a lot of, like you said, real estate narratives out there where it's like, oh, I understand if I buy the house, someone else pays me and I didn't have to do anything to get paid because I own the house. Like, you literally have to do nothing when the money's in an investment account for it to continue to grow. That's going to ultimately what ends up being your passive income. But it was passive growth in this regard because you didn't do anything for it to grow 300,000 over the course of 3 years. Like, that's thebomb.com.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception that you have to somehow have these assets that generate all of this income. But if you have the portfolio can generate income for you.
Absolutely. All right. Let's wind it down with some general tips for how people can get where they want to go. It is a new year. This is a new you. I don't know you on the other end, or maybe I do. You might be my friend, my buddy listening to my podcast, but either way, we all need to level up on our savings. I absolutely am planning to do so for myself this year. We're trying to give you the tools and tips that you need to be able to do that for yourself. And so what other little things does someone need to be thinking about as they get ready for retirement in 2023?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is just, don't get discouraged. Like, this episode might have scared you a little bit, but it's never too late to start saving for your future. And if you're working in a career where, you hopefully you're going to continue to get increases in salary and raises and bonuses, or you might get promotions. And so even if you're not able to save a lot now, just as you start to make more, figure out how much is enough for you. And then, anything above that, like Lauryn was saying earlier, you can save more and more each year.
Absolutely. The other thing I would say is you definitely want to make sure that you know that you have enough money. How do you do that? My opinion, hire a financial professional. And so this is not a plug for me and Chloe. Actually, me and Chloe run this podcast, so we can also plug ourselves. But really, it's about getting someone that will hold you accountable. So let's say like you said, we went through those 7 steps. You might be in the get out of debt phase. You might be in the build an emergency fund phase. You might be, in any different levels of these different phases that we talked about. But there are financial coaches out there. There are debt counselors out there. There's all sorts of different financial professionals that can help you get yourself going on the right track. Because like she said, it's never too late. So to figure out like what your enough is, you might need to enlist the help of someone. Chloe works with individuals in tech. We talked a lot about high earning individuals, like startups and tech industry in general is just kind of crazy. I mean, market's a little crazy right now, so it's not as crazy, but there's a lot of people that are getting into tech. And so if you've got those stock options, you're trying to figure out what to do with them, how to make the most of them, Chloe is your girl. So don't be afraid to reach out to the people that you are learning from on a regular basis, but also don't be afraid. I'll actually drop a link in the show notes. I have a referral page as well to some different places, depending on you're a little bit older or you're someone that is, I don't know. I got all kinds of different stuff on my thing. So a business owner, that's actually another option. I have a referral list that you can look into to find out what is the right financial professional for you. But figure out what your enough is. Any other tips, Chloe?
Yeah, one is just automate as much as possible. So, with your 401k, and we talked about how that comes out of your paycheck every single time. So when you get your take home pay, make sure that you're automating that savings. So if you have a certain amount of money that you want to start investing into a brokerage account or some other type of investment account, then as soon as you get paid, make sure that money's going somewhere else and out of your hands so you're not spending it.
Yes, out of sight, out of mind, and right where it needs to be. You can also just increase your savings rate as your income increases. So you got a 3% raise for the new year, which is the general raise people get for inflation. I don't know if that's enough this time around, but you can also raise your retirement savings by 3%. So income goes up, saving rate goes up. Really easy thing to do, like you said, and it's already an automated thing. You log in one time, increase it, bump it up, and it keeps on happening.
Yeah. And then the other thing would be just to save windfalls. If you get like an unexpected tax refund, or if you get like a bonus, for all of those people that are in tech, if you're getting that RSUs or stock options and you have that equity in your company that you're getting in lump sums, you can always use those lump sums to help kind of accelerate your savings.
So like I said, want to encourage you to find balance between enjoying life and savings for the future. This was not a sad podcast. This was a happy, let's get going. Let's get this momentum. You can do it podcast. We know that you want to retire because we want to retire. And like I said, even if you think that you're going to want to work forever because you love your job, we want you to have the flexibility to be able to stop because you no longer can work, or to stop because you want to throw up your middle finger to someone and say, I don't want to do this no more. But you can still go on vacation. You can still spend time with family and friends. It's just a matter of prioritizing what you want for today and what you want for your future self. And I guarantee your future self is going to thank you for backing off and, figuring out where the waste is happening today so that you can have a really good time, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now, or 100 years from now if you don't listen to us. But so let's wrap up with today's money quote. It is, the question isn't at what age I want to retire, it's at what income. And so that is right on par with what we were talking about today. Like, how much money do you want to spend when you hit what you call retirement? Do you want to have to cut back so that you can meet your expenses, or do you want to be able to ball till you fall? So thanks to George Foreman. Actually, we've got a couple good money quotes. So I'm gonna throw one more at you. The best time to start thinking about your retirement is before the boss does. Chloe, this one was unknown, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's like you definitely want to make sure that you're prepared. Like we were saying, if you are sick of your job, if you want to leave, or if you're unexpectedly laid off or forced into an early retirement, you want to make sure that you're always prepared.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to get caught off guard. Like if I can just make it 3 more years, then, fill in the blank XYZ. You want to have your backup plan. So if something unexpected happens based on your plan, you can still pivot and make everything work. We will drop links to all the different resources we referred to today to help you get going on the right track. We wish you all the best for 2023. Let's go out here and get this money.
Happy New Year.